How's it going, everyone? It's GriimYT here, and welcome back to another review. We got a big one for you guys here today. The new Code Pandorum album, La Fin Absolue Du Monde, which translates to, I believe, the absolute end of the world. This album just came out today, and yeah, I am very excited to be talking about this because obviously this is the newest album from Code Pandorum since he has rebranded from Inhuman to Code Pandorum this year. This is the first album of that rebrand, and yeah, I'm very excited to dive into this because it is really, really sick. And so let's get into it. So unlike most albums that come out with singles, like this album had like 5 or 6 singles come out before it actually released in November. I think some of them came out like August, September, October, and so on. And then the full thing came out obviously today in November. I haven't listened to any of the singles before this album came out because I wanted to go into this thing like fresh, no idea what it sounds like, just like the entire thing from start to finish. And I'm really glad I did that because it was really cool to hear this thing from start to finish, every song like without knowing what any of them sound like. I had no idea what any of these songs sounded like. I think Cement Garden came out beforehand, and Klaubauf, I believe I'm saying that right, came out beforehand, and a couple others. So, yeah, it was really cool to hear this thing like from start to finish, like fresh, no, ideas of what it sounds like. So that was cool. But I was really excited when he announced this album because obviously since going back to Code Pandorum, I was curious, okay, where is he taking the project? And this album is definitely a really strong direction. And so yeah, let's dive into some of these tracks. So some of the singles that came out before the album came out were Cement Garden, Klaubauf, Tulpa, Body of Decay, Nihilist, and Broken Mirror. Those are the ones that came out before the album's release. So those ones, have already been out for a while now, but I obviously haven't heard them like I just said. But the rest of them are all new. So really cool that there's a nice little bunch of collabs, but like a lot of these are, primarily solo tracks from him, which is really cool. And yeah, I have to say overall, first of all, that the production of this album is like ridiculous. Like it's so like high quality. Everything sounds like really, really good. Like the production wise, and Code Pandorum has always been, very fine-tuned when it comes to production and like always very high quality and stuff like that. So but obviously when he wants that stuff to be really distorted and just like messy, like he can do that too. So it's really cool. The other thing about it is that it does sound like a Code Pandorum album. That's the most important thing. There are a couple instances of like some Inhuman going on. There's like a couple tracks that are kind of techno inspired or like halftime and stuff. So a little bit of that Inhuman kind of like machinist technology in there, but like it's still Code Pandorum, which is really cool also. And yeah, I have to say too, Tulpa with Flow Anesthesia as the vocalist, incredible vocals. Like she just absolutely crushed those vocals. The song itself is beautiful, so well done, but the vocals, I was like, wow, these are some really like top-notch vocals. Really, really cool. Fits the album perfectly, of course. So and everything in here fits the album perfectly. Everything in here is distorted, dark, and that's the thing with this album, like the tone of it. This thing feels like it's like a tape you'd find in the woods with like the label scratched off it, and you're like, what the hell is this thing? And then you take it home and this is what it sounds like. It's like something you'd like see in like a horror movie. Literally, it's like a horror movie in an album. And I remember reading an interview of Code Pandorum like years and years ago from like 2016 where somebody was like, describe your sound, and he was like, imagine like the most twisted horror movie you've ever seen and like in music form. And this album's a perfect representation of that. It's like the Blair Witch Project or something, like Paranormal Activity. Okay, that movie's kind of stupid, but like Blair Witch, for example, it's like that in an album. It's just so cool having that like horror aspect and like that kind of like dark vibe. And the thing is, so many producers are doing that nowadays. I'm not going to name names because there's too many, but so many producers are going down the route of that dark and like evil kind of sound, and a lot of them just don't do it right. And Code Pandorum has been consistently doing it well for so many years. Like this thing fits really well like with his project, and just every song fits the album, but it just has this consistent dark theme without sounding too like, sometimes it's too over the top and it's too silly to the point where it's like it's almost like hard to take it seriously. But this is just the right amount of like that dark like kind of horror movie aesthetic to make it really, really cool. If I had to pick some of my favorite tracks though, Desolation and Cement Garden were really, really cool. Klaubauf was awesome. I really liked that one. And like I said, Tulpa as well. The vocals were just so well done. I couldn't believe how good the vocals were. I was like, this is insane. I also really like Mark of Agony. That one was really sick too. Like, I love the halftime songs in here too. Halftime is becoming a very big staple in bass music. You're hearing a lot of big artists use it because it's so effective, having a song that goes from like the same typical 140, 150 BPM we're used to this just very slow and dragged out sound. And some producers obviously do it so wrong. It just sounds terrible. But a lot of the times, the ones that do it right, for example, Odd Prophet, of course, and even Sudden Death, for example, too. Some of his songs from his Harbinger album were kind of slowed down. this album too, like the songs that are like, there's one song I think where it goes halftime and it just sounds so well done. Like the transition is so smooth and it just makes the song sound so much heavier when it's so slow. You know, you get into this rhythm when it's the same BPM that everyone's used to. So when it's slowed down, it's like it makes it so much heavier. So it's just so cool, so well done. And yeah, I just think this is like a really cool overall Code Pandorum album. I think everything in here fits really well together. I think the track Nihilist, or no, I think it was Broken Mirror, it has this vocal from this really old Code Pandorum song from like 2017 that like nobody probably remembers, but I do, and I thought that was really cool. I think the song's called Senua or something like that. It's from one of like the first Crow's Nest compilations. That was really cool to hear again. But other than that, it's just, yeah, really, really well done. Really high quality. Everything in here is just so well done, and I'm very excited to see where the Code Pandorum project is going after this, because this is a great first start. And like he said, it's obviously called The Absolute End of the World, but like this is the beginning of like the next chapter of Code Pandorum, which I think is awesome as well. So I'm really excited to see what else he's got. Maybe some remixes of this album. I know his Inhuman album, Arrival, he did some remixes, so maybe we'll get some remixes for this, you know, some of the singles here. But overall, the album's amazing, so well done, so high quality, just, yeah, just fantastic. So very excited to see where Code Pandorum goes in the future. Definitely let me know in the comments, you know, what was your favorite track from here. Like I said, those four I think were my favorites. Cement Garden and Desolation might be tied for first place. Those two were just so sick. So I think those two are my favorite, but everything else in here is so cool. So definitely check it out if you haven't already. And yeah. Okay, one more thing I forgot to mention, the visuals for this album. Now I listen to it on Spotify, so like it's just the songs, but I know there were some visuals released for some of these songs, and like there was some video clips, like, you know, some visual clips to promote the album. And yeah, those just drive home this like horror aesthetic, this horror movie aesthetic. It's just so cool. It literally feels like a horror movie as an album in like music form. And I think I saw the Absolue Du Monde visualizer on his YouTube channel. Like I watched it, and it literally feels like one of these horror movies, even one of these horror video games. It feels like Outlast 2 or something like that, as like a song, and like in the visuals for it. So cool. And I just love the horror aesthetic. That's why I love Code Pandorum. I'm a big horror movie fan and like horror stuff in general. I just think it's so cool how you can make people feel so uncomfortable and just so uneasy with just, especially with music. With visuals, that's hard. You know, that's pretty easy. If you show people blood or someone dying or something like that, they're going to be pretty off-put. But with music, how do you do that? But like some of these songs, having the screams in the background, having these really distorted basses, these really off-putting melodies, like the choirs and stuff, that's what Code Pandorum does. And that's why these songs feel like a horror movie, you know, without trying so hard to be all heavy and stuff, because it's just the elements around it. So I wanted to mention that too, because yeah, the visuals for this thing are so sick. But yeah, like I said, awesome album. Let me know in the comments what your favorite track was, and thank you all for watching. I'll see y'all later. Peace.